Am I the a-hole for forbidding my sister to meet my child and telling my wife to butt out of the situation? So the judgment is pretty much exactly as the title suggests. I will provide context though. I, 28 male, have been married to my wife 4 years and we have a 2-year-old son together. My older sister Ariel has 2 kids with her husband. She is my only sibling, but we do not speak and haven't since my wedding 4 years ago. My wife knew I had no relationship with my sister or mother when we got together, but now it's causing an argument. We were a pretty typical family until my mom cheated my senior year of high school with a coworker. My dad moved out immediately and I moved with him. This caused a rift between me and my sister. My sister believed, since my mom was sorry and it was a one-time thing as she claimed, which I don't for a second believe, and was trying to reconcile through the church, that me and my dad's refusal to speak with her was somehow wrong. I was 18 and my sister was 20. Long story, but eventually my sister stopped speaking with my dad. I haven't seen my mom since 2016, and we have only spoken once since 2019 when she tried to invite herself to my wedding. She was not invited, but my sister was, out of courtesy. My sister didn't show up and we have not spoken since. My wife knew when she married me that my only family was my dad and my cousins. She said it was okay and she didn't care. So, a few months ago, my wife got a call from my sister's husband whom I've never met, and he said that he wanted to start mending the bridge and would like to have me come meet their kids. I said no. Well, then my sister started sending pictures of her kids to my wife and my wife sent pictures back. I told her multiple times I did not like this, and she told me she could send pictures to whoever she wants. I said that if she keeps testing my boundaries, she will be a single parent really soon, that she signed up for me as is. My wife is saying it's wrong to deprive my son of his family. I said I don't even have a relationship with my sister or brother-in-law, so why should my kid? That it doesn't make me feel comfortable at all, and I don't even know these people. Also, any picture she sends could easily be forwarded to my mom and she needed to think about that. She said she doesn't even understand why my mom can't meet her kid, and that comment alone angered me because I've explained my family drama for years, and it feels like she just ignored it. I said she really needs to think about who she wants to appease, because I'm not gonna stand for disrespect of my boundaries. My dad totally agrees with me, and is telling me I should start setting aside money now for an exit strategy because my wife's behavior is exactly how my mom used to act, and I should see the warning signs now. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Your dad cut off his own daughter and his own grandchildren because they didn't want to participate in the public shunning of his ex. I'm sorry, but your dad is an a-hole. No, my dad cut off his daughter after she wouldn't leave him the hell alone, blasted him to family friends for not taking my mom back, and tried to manipulate him by not speaking to him for months when he tried reaching out, and calling him a deadbeat even though she was 20 years old. Lol. Then she didn't show up for my wedding, and that was the final straw. Your mindset is man-hating and disgusting. Get some help. Not the a-hole. This was all clearly defined at the beginning of your relationship. Why does she even care? Follow your dad's advice. Pretty much what I said. Why do you care? Her parents are close by. She has multiple siblings. My dad is involved. It's not like the kid has nobody. The only concern if you were to break up over this is custody. On her time, she could very well take your child to meet your mother, and there is nothing you could do about it. Sounds like his wife is doing what she wants regardless. And if she decides to take the kid to see his auntie or grandmother, she will do without Opie's consent. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter it's okay to use her mother for money? So, I used to be married to Judy, 36 female, and we have a daughter Scarlett, 13 together. Fake names. Judy never wanted kids, but I did, and I assumed she did too. We had her and Judy completely changed. She wasn't caring towards Scarlett, they didn't bond, and she blamed Scarlett for us losing our independence. About a year after, we had a divorce and she gave me everything. It did hurt me that she didn't even want to see Scarlett once a year even. She moved to Seattle months after, started running a business, got really fit, and her cousin told me she even got laser surgery to remove her stretch marks. Since then, Judy has moved to LA and divides her time between there, London, Mumbai, and New York City. She has become a fairly famous influencer and socialite. I check her Instagram every now and then, and she's been at parties with celebrities all over the world and seems truly happy. To her credit, every time her financial situation changed, she would come back and get our child support agreement changed to give more to Scarlett. Every time she'd come, she would spend time with Scarlett. She even kept it the same, even though my new wife makes a lot more money than both of us, and we don't need it now. About 3 years ago, she started calling more to talk to Scarlett. She would also come over more, and every spring break, she comes for those 2 weeks. She phones every night unless she's in London, Mumbai, or New York, in which case she just sends a text. On New Year's, she was at some celebrity's party but still took the time to phone. Now, I'm not saying that this makes up for anything, but she has been a presence in Scarlett's life. Well, we just found out that Judy's grandfather is very ill and is going to pass away within a month, maybe early March at best. So, she's going to India for spring break for his funeral and has requested to take Scarlett with her. I'm fine with that. My wife is fine with that. However, Scarlett got really upset at the idea of spending 2 weeks in India. I pointed out her mom will take her to all the nice places. She'll get to see great things, meet that part of her family, but she said that is not fair. So I pointed out that at the very least she can get whatever she wants out of her mom in those 2 weeks. My wife overheard and said I was an a-hole for telling Scarlett that it's alright for her to use her mom for cash since she has barely been in her life. I pointed out I didn't say that, but we argued, and since then I realized what I said kind of did amount to that. Was I the a-hole? Edit. Judy never told me she did not want kids. She allowed me to believe she did. If I knew she didn't, we would never have gotten married. You're the a-hole. If Scarlett doesn't want to go, don't make her go. Advocating for taking advantage of her mother is crappy. Is it wrong to point out that even if she won't be her mom's full attention, she can still get whatever she wants for those 2 weeks? I'm not telling her to drain her mother's savings account. Yes, this is wrong. You're teaching your daughter that time with people is transactional. Like if I go with mom, I get stuff, rather than allowing her to get to know her mom as a parent, not a bank account. Also, you answered your own question about why your daughter doesn't want to go. She won't be her mom's full attention. You've been her stable parent, and now you're trying to force her to be around strangers with no safety net. Her anxiety is valid. Stop forcing her because you want to be petty towards Judy. You're the a-hole. Scarlett got really upset at the idea of spending 2 weeks in India. Your kid doesn't want to go to India with someone she barely knows. Why would you push her on that? Because it's good for her. Not if she's freaked out about it. That's not a mindset where she's going to get something good from the trip. The main thing she's going to get is that you, her dad, don't care about forcing her to do something that feels unsafe just so you can get some petty revenge on your ex. So, your message to your daughter was, it's good to let other people do things with you that make you uncomfortable as long as they pay you. Great parenting. No way that message could go wrong. You're the a-hole. What I meant was, her mom can give her anything on that trip, and probably will give her that, so there's no harm in her going. Next story. Am I the a-hole for asking my husband to not drink on his 30th birthday? So me, 25 female, and my husband, 29 male, are expecting a baby somewhere in the next few weeks. I'm currently 35 weeks pregnant, and my husband's birthday is in 2 weeks. We were discussing the event yesterday, and I absolutely don't mind him celebrating it, and is very excited because it's his 30th. But I told him that since it's pretty close to my due date, I want him to not drink in case he needs to take me to the hospital. Now, I know the chances of that happening exactly then are slim, of course, but it's not impossible. I told him that I don't want to have to be taken by a cab and I want him to take me, as I don't want to be screaming in pain and potentially wetting myself in someone else's car. He said I'm being silly, and that there's no way I would go into labor in that time frame when he will be celebrating, and that he should be able to enjoy a drink with his friends, and that is not fair. I told him I haven't enjoyed a drink in 8 months, and it's really not a big deal. Am I an a-hole for asking him this? Edit. He wants to celebrate the birthday at our place, which is outside the city, so it would take a long time for someone to drive to our house and then all the way back. I understand that probably most births don't happen fast, but both my mother and grandmother had very quick births. I also understand there's plenty of situations where he might not be able to drive me personally, like if he's broken his leg or whatever, but these situations I can't predict. I'm not trying to control him. I very much encourage him to celebrate, but he's a lightweight, 1 to 2 beers, and is already tipsy. And no, I'm not mad because he can drink and I can't, and I'm not just being a mean woman. This is my first pregnancy, and honestly, I'm terrified of giving birth. Maybe it's not that scary. Plenty of women do it every day, I know. But things happen, and you never know what's gonna happen to you. And I need him there. present and sober, and I want to not have to worry if he's all there. Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole. And I say this as a woman with a toddler and a baby. Let him enjoy his birthday. It's going to be way harder to do things once the kid is there. The odds of going from absolutely no signs of labor to ready to go to the hospital in the course of a few hours is very unlikely. Is he planning on getting so absolutely drunk that he can't stand up for 2 days? My sister-in-law gave birth in the ER waiting room because they didn't make it on time to get her checked in. My niece was 2 weeks early too. Is having a drink or 5 really worth the worry it causes to your pregnant wife and the risk of missing something that relevant? Surely it's possible to make a game plan just for that night. Designate a driver who can drive Opie to the hospital just in case she happens to go into labor that night of his birthday. Opie's husband can agree to limit his intake to a few drinks, so he isn't very drunk. I feel like there's room for compromise here. No a-holes here. I can see both sides honestly. It's a big date. Can you make arrangements for someone else to take you in the unlikely case that you go into labor? Opie explains that she doesn't want to be in that vulnerable position in front of someone else, which I think is totally valid. It's not unreasonable to expect the child's other parent to be able to take her to the hospital. Not the a-hole. I can see how it might be awful for him, but if he can't make small sacrifices now, he's in for a rude awakening once he's a father. I'm sorry, but 1 drink is not the end of the world. The odds that she goes into labor within 2 hours of him having a drink or 2 on his birthday at 37 weeks pregnant is so low. I'm a father of 2 kids. I still occasionally have a drink or 2. Being a parent doesn't mean being dead. Last story. Am I the a-hole for missing an actual emergency because I turned off my phone to avoid my wife's unnecessary contact attempts during my tech-free weekend? My best friend 31 male and I 27 male have a tradition of taking a yearly weekend trip together that's phone-free. We've been doing this for a decade now. These weekend trips consist of us staying in a suite and exploring the city, not traversing the wilderness, so it's not like we're completely disconnected. Still, we like to keep one on hand for navigation and emergency purposes, and it would usually be friend's phone that we brought along. Friend and I left for our trip this year 2 Fridays ago to make sure of the long weekend. This was the first time I've gone on one of these trips since my wife and I moved in together, got engaged, or got married. However, we were dating for the last 2 years worth of trips, 2021 and 2022, and she seemed fine during that time. I would just tell her I was going to be busy for the weekend and she'd leave me alone. I understand that there are different expectations once you get married, but I didn't expect for the 180 behavior. My wife all but demanded I take my phone as well, in case she needed to get a hold of me despite her having friend's number. I let her know I had arrived, and immediately after that she was texting me and asking me how things were. Then again, asking me another question when I didn't respond to the first one. I eventually muted our text conversation because I was sick of the phone buzzing. She called me a few hours later and asked why I wasn't responding to her texts. I reiterated that this was supposed to be a no-phone weekend and kept the call short despite her trying to drag out the conversation. She called me once more after this. When I answered and found out it wasn't an emergency, I simply turned off my phone. The calls then started coming in from my friend as well, and it followed suit. We spent the rest of the weekend with our phones off until the drive back on Monday. I called my wife and informed her when we were about 30 minutes away from my place, and she was furious. She said that there ended up being an emergency as her sister got into a car accident that won't affect her long term but still resulted in broken bones, and that I had just ignored her the entire time when she needed me. I told her that I was very sorry to hear about her sister, but it wasn't my fault she had essentially forced my hand into cutting off means of communication. She went to stay with a friend before I arrived home that night and has since came home, but she's still fuming. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I'm politely asking everyone to stop making harmful accusations about my friend and the nature of our relationship when we were younger. It's making me uncomfortable, and not in the I'm having an epiphany way you guys are hoping, but in the you're jumping to incredibly crude conclusions about someone I love and trust, based on a tiny snippet into our life. Not the a-hole. Her sister getting into what sounds like a relatively minor car accident is not an emergency. This is beyond ridiculous. How is it different from you being in another country and having no service or something? People are allowed to still live their lives despite being married. You're not tethered to your spouse. Oh yeah, minor broken bones aren't an emergency. Definitely not the least bit life-threatening or altering or anything. I agree the wife should have respected boundaries, but it's not exactly minor and can be very scary for not only the person, but the people waiting on a word from the doctor during/after surgery, which is also not minor. So I can see why she's mad she couldn't contact him. Again, her fault for not respecting boundaries. Not the a-hole. I have the odd feeling that she almost wanted there to be an actual emergency so she could feel justified in bothering, and might have created one if it didn't occur naturally. She desperately doesn't want you away from her. You'll need to have a serious conversation about that. I had a similar thought that she was sabotaging the tech-free weekend. If friend can't relax because he's fielding texts, then Opie can't relax either, and it's a win for her. She sounds awfully insecure and exhausting. I second the insecure comment. It's as if she had to keep in constant touch with Opie because she suspected something. Okay, but she's insecure because in the comments he implies he used to date his friend. Am I the a-hole for continuing to cheat on my wife with a guy who groomed me when I was underage?